The CX-5 is Mazda's bestseller for a reason. While the last gen was not without its drawbacks, it was a standout. So, can I say the same about the new one? The old CX-5 was not afraid of sacrifice. The ride was firm. It didn't have a super big back seat. It was one of the smallest vehicles of its kind. But the end result was a crossover that drove like a fun hatchback. It was engaging, and it also came with segment-leading quality, a very straightforward cabin, and a reasonable price tag. The new CX-5 might be a better value than the old one. Here's why. It starts at just about $31,000, and fully loaded, this thing reaches $40,000. That's considerably cheaper than most of its competitors' top specs. And it packs a lot of features for the money. It's also packing more size. It went from being one of the smallest compact crossovers to just about the largest in one model year. The wheelbase has grown by over 4 inches, and on the outside, it reminds me a little bit of a CX-70, CX-90 kind of thing. Like other Mazdas, it's very curvy. I think it's more aggressive than the prior generation. We all have our own opinions on it, but for me, seeing it in person, I'm a fan. And this larger size, while it might have trade-offs on the road, it does pack more cargo space. So the prior generation, it had a usable trunk, but here we have more height, and we also have a couple more inches of length, and that grows further when you fold down the rear seats. Plus, it retains the 40-20-40 split rear row, as well as the spare tire. With the prior generation, I think the biggest thing limiting its reach was the back seat size. Now, you could still fit an adult back there, but if you had a giant car seat or someone tall up front, it really could lead the rear seat passengers to feeling cramped, and compared to basically all of its competitors, it was smaller. That's not the case anymore. First, you have a very wide opening rear door. Mazda is very good about providing this on their SUVs, so getting into it, loading kids or child seats in here should be very easy. And at 6'3", I can still sit behind myself with a whole lot more comfort than I could before. Rear console vents will come on everything but the base model. You can get heated seats. Thigh support is nice. I mean, this is easily road trip worthy. Plus, now you can get a panoramic sunroof. But I think it's time that we address the IMAX in the room. The infotainment. This is a giant departure from what we had in the prior car. If we're going to start with the pros to this, the response time and resolution are good. The way that it is laid out is generally easy to understand. There are a ton of different settings, and if it's going to integrate the climate controls in here, I like that it's pretty easy for me to quickly adjust all of my controls. Sometimes all of the climate controls don't pull up exactly when I want them to. Maybe a software update can fix that. If you don't want to use a touchscreen to adjust the climate, you can also use voice commands, but that will interrupt your music for a solid 5, sometimes 10 seconds. Now, getting rid of the control dial, I completely understand. There are a lot of people who enjoyed it quite a bit because they never had to lift a finger to control things. There's also a lot of people who hated it and probably didn't even consider a Mazda because of it. So I get switching to a traditional touchscreen. Eliminating all of the buttons and dials except for the defrosters just feels like a little bit too big of a departure. Their prior buttons and dials to control the HVAC, the prior volume dial, were easier to use while you're in motion than this. You can control some things like your volume here on the steering wheel, and I like that you have a pause play button. That's cool to see. And these feel nice. There's a tactile button, click, though it is still technically a capacitive panel. I don't mind it at all, but if I want to quickly turn down the volume, it takes like 5 seconds to do it. Give me a knob. Why is it that difficult? Okay, rant over. We also have a digital gauge cluster. It doesn't really do a whole lot outside of show you a few different things. Overall, I think this tech will be a sticking point for some of the Mazda loyalists and people who just want a traditional, simple car, but it's reasonably well executed, and I don't think that overall it's going to be a deal breaker to most people shopping in this segment. Only time will be able to tell. Let me know, especially previous Gen CX-5 owners, is this something that takes it off the list for you, or are you willing to hear Mazda out? Because the rest of the interior is a nice place to be. Maybe not quite as many soft touch materials as what the Mazda 3 has, but the build construction and panel fitment is all good. This feels like a nicer car than a similarly priced RAV4 or CR-V. And for taller folks, it's also more comfortable than what the prior generation was. I have a much more natural driving position. The seats are more comfortable. They're not great though. I mean, I think thigh support is a little lacking, but it's a step in the right direction compared to the prior Gen CX-5 or the CX-50, in my opinion. And the way that Mazda equips the CX-5 makes most competitors look stingy. While wireless CarPlay is omitted on the base, at $35,000, the Preferred gets all-wheel drive, a two-tone leatherette interior, heated front seats with power adjustments for the driver, a heated steering wheel, a head-up display, and a power tailgate. Personally, I might pick up a premium for the ventilated seats and powerful, crisp Bose sound system. Go with the Premium Plus and you add a 360 view camera with steering wheel button activation, which also gives you quite a good view. Though I do wish that I could toggle the views with the button on the steering wheel instead of like this. Small nitpick. To lug around 300 pounds more of Mazda, this is going to make 187 horsepower, and for the curb weight, surprisingly, it actually doesn't feel all that bad. Maybe because of the 6-speed automatic transmission. So off the line, especially, this has some nice bite. Now, once you get past like 30 or 40 miles per hour, you realize there isn't a whole lot of guts to it. Passing power with, any of the turbocharged competition is going to be better. While updates for this powertrain are insignificant, they aren't non-existent. So there is a smaller EGR cooler, which means that air can pass through faster, and that in turn results in better throttle response. The automatic transmission has also been retuned. It's supposed to downshift quicker, but also hold on to gears more, so that helps it feel more sure of itself, less like it's hunting for a ratio. And I mean, I've been pretty impressed. It's super smooth. It hasn't made any goofy decisions in my several hours of driving this at this point. Adding a couple of gears to allow for closer ratios would improve the performance here, but for those that want a compact Mazda crossover with legs, the Turbo CX-50 will blow the doors off of this. 87% of people bought this with the naturally aspirated engine in the prior gen, and I think all of those people will be more than happy with this engine. And if you want more power, I would presume that the upcoming hybrid that we'll see in 2027 should give it to you. That will actually be an in-house Mazda project and not simply a supply drop that they called in from Toyota. Underneath, we're gonna find standard all-wheel drive, just like the prior generation. Ground clearance sits at around 8 inches. It's not an off-road SUV, but it does have an off-road mode, which, like the old car, stops spinning wheels to redirect torque side to side. And for 2026, they've changed the hardware. You actually have a larger torque coupling, which should help prevent any overheating. And it also allows them to tune the all-wheel drive differently without fear of damaging that coupling. It gives them some overhead. What I'm less thrilled to see is the gas mileage situation. Despite now including cylinder deactivation and iStop on all models, it also gets worse gas mileage than the prior car, probably due to the extra size. We're now talking 30 miles to the gallon on the highway and 26 combined, putting it a few mpgs below its competitors. We'll see what that hybrid can manage next year. Unlike other small crossovers, the handling of the Mazda CX-5 is a very important characteristic. Not that it doesn't matter in something like a RAV4, but here it's been defined by its fun to drive nature. The new car, to me, while it does perform well, it's lost a lot of the soul. The good things that I'm feeling, it is planted. It feels substantial. It feels confident. It's a little fun. I think, especially with how they've weighted this steering, it's got this heft to it. It reminds me of a baby CX-90, and I mean that in a good way, though it does still feel more agile than that car. So my beef with this is the old CX-5 was much more chuckable. The steering was lighter. It had more feedback than this. This steering, it builds up a little bit in weight as you're going through corners, and I think it feels nice. It doesn't have that communication. It doesn't really engage the driver the same way, and it doesn't change direction as fast. Still, recently I drove a Subaru Forester, a Honda CR-V. It feels more capable than those cars. I think I was just hoping that this wouldn't feel as heavy. It doesn't feel as playful as the old car. Mazda fanboys and driving enthusiasts might be a little bummed by the more numb experience, but the new CX-5 also comes with improved ride quality over the old one, something that I'm sure the masses will appreciate. This insulates you from the road quite a bit better. It's smoother over smaller imperfections, and as you hit larger things, it soaks them up better than before. It is pretty forgiving. In fact, I would go as far to say this is the best riding Mazda in the lineup. And this also retains its independent rear suspension, unlike the CX-50. For the person who is hoping that the new CX-5 would be more premium, you will be happy. Also, I think that market is not going to mind the car feeling larger. Bringing this up to highway speeds, Mazda says that they've increased the sound insulation, and to my ears, this does feel like one of the more serene cars in the segment. But just like other Mazdas, active driving aids are relatively limited unless you go with the Premium Plus, where you'll gain lane centering, that 360 view camera, and even front cross traffic alert, which doesn't seem to be as annoying as it is in Toyota products. Go with any other trim and you'll just have adaptive cruise control. As far as the active safety aids, well, there you're going to get everything basically as standard, including blind spot monitoring. I do appreciate that Mazda stresses safety in all of their products, and even when their old models get thrown into the new crash tests, they still manage to ace them. And because this engine is pretty proven in the lineup at this point, I have optimism for the reliability of the CX-5 as well. As a person who spends most of their waking moments reviewing cars, this really impressed me. I think that the average crossover buyer who's maybe cross-shopping it with a CR-V or a RAV4 will be very impressed with the amount of car that you're getting for the money, the versatility. And I think a lot of people who previously said no to a CX-5 because of its more sporty ride will also be enticed. This is for the person who sees Mazda as a budget, upscale brand. However, when I look at this from the perspective of a current Mazda owner that bought their car for its playful disposition and simplicity, I'm feeling a bit let down. Don't get me wrong, the new model is a success from a product standpoint. It is handily a better vehicle for a broader audience. But if you want a crossover that makes comfort, versatility, and trendiness top priorities, you already have endless options to choose from. If you want one that goes out of its way to be fun, you buy a CX-5. That is, or was, its place in the market. Now the CX-50 is left to fill those shoes. I still think that this is one of the best driving vehicles in the class, but the new CX-5 is more about threatening the dominance of Honda and Toyota than continuing its own legacy. Thanks for watching, and thank you to my channel members for helping me improve my videos. Consider joining for additional content, and I'll catch you in the next one.